There wasn't much of a change in the solar equipment until about when the oil embargo happened. President Carter at that time started the renewable energy push. And there was a lot of progress made during that time. In 1980, we created an agency called the SRCC, which generates standards for the solar industry. So they came up with a standard for the panels and for the systems, so that you'll get, if any panel that you buy today has an SRC stamp on it that it's approved, and you can see what the performance ratings are, just like a stove or any other appliance that you buy today. So that gave some credibility to the industry. And in fact, President Carter put the very first solar panels on the White House. 1981, President Reagan was elected, and we were just coming out of the oil embargo, and the big oil wanted people to use oil. Then, and actually very quietly, in 2003, the solar panels got put back on the White House by the Bushes. And actually, it was Mrs. Bush. But it wasn't the White House building itself proper, it was some of the outbuildings by the pool and the spa, so that they actually used solar hot water at their ranch in Texas. So they were big fans of it. It worked because they were in a remote area. So it was very beneficial for them. So those systems are still on the White House today. And in 2005, the legislature passed federal tax credits for solar thermal, which is 30% tax credit, which is still available today until about 2016. And just recently, President Obama, under political pressure, put solar panels actually on the physical White House, the main building itself, solar electric panels. Should I invest? Well, I did, and I'll tell you why. Virginia has some of the best solar radiation in the country. The system life, a system will last 40 years. Recently, we've been servicing equipment from back in the day, the Carter days. And I've seen systems that were built, manufactured by Reynolds Aluminum. Systems that are 25 and 30 years old, still functioning today. So in a 10-year, when we compare them in a 10-year life cycle, for fossil fuel, which is the gas, electric, propane, you're going to, in a 10-year span, you're going to use anywhere from $5,500 to $7,700 to pay for your monthly fuel bills, plus the appliance itself. In the last 35 years, we've averaged about 7.5% in energy inflation. Add solar panels to your system, to your home. Now the real estate people say that you'll recover that money as an investment to your home, so it increases the value of your home, not just for the first year, but for all 10, 20, 30 years, because that equipment's going to last 40 years. It's also good for the environment. You wouldn't realize it, but your hot water tank that you got using either oil or gas or electric generates anywhere from 40 to 100% of the emission of an automobile. So taking a hot water tank off of fossil fuel and putting it onto solar is like taking another car off the highway. Wouldn't it be nice if we could eliminate the congestion along with that too? So you'll eliminate smog and carbon. Sustainability, this is a word that's crept into everybody's vocabulary. What it really means is we need to be able to meet our present needs and also have our children be able to meet their future needs. And there's a lot of question on, are we over the peak oil period? How much fuel is left? I don't know. The scientists and the experts can't agree amongst themselves, but fossil fuel will never last forever. So whereas the sun, we hope, will last forever. So it makes sense to move what we can onto renewable energy. And hot water is certainly something we can move. Also, California recently came up with an idea. They found out that, well, they figured out that if they could get 100,000 people to move their hot water heaters to solar, that would remove enough demand on the gas supply that they realize about a 15% reduction in the cost of gas, natural gas. So that's pretty amazing. The other thing is almost all the solar equipment that we install is made in the USA. So you're also generating jobs for people in this country. Will it work at my house? Well, it depends on your site. You want a southern exposure for your panels to face. A lot of Richmond, when the people got off the boat, as I said, they got off in the wrong place. The river goes northeast by southwest, and so they built the roads out from northeast by southwest. So a lot of the roads downtown make it so that the houses aren't aligned to make it easy to do solar. The nice thing is, though, that solar hot water can be plus or minus 30 degrees of south, not like solar electric panels, which you really want to face south. So you've got a lot more flexibility with a solar hot water panel. Trees and shading. Shade, the sun moves, so in the summer, the sun is very high and shadows are very short. But in the winter, when the sun comes down, shadows get a lot longer. So you have to have someone look at your space and determine where the shadows are going to be. They have a little device that they can tell where the shadows are going to be for the whole year and where's a good position to put your panels. And sometimes you could put them on the ground, or you can typically put them on the roof. I have them in both the roof and the ground, so I actually prefer on the ground. It seems to be a little easier to service them. If you're in an area where you have a homeowners association, prior to about 2008, a lot of those had provisions in them where you couldn't add anything without the permission of the homeowners association. Since 2008, that's changed because now we have solar rights, which guarantees you the right to put solar panels up on your house. So if it predates 2008, you'll need to check with your homeowners association. Also, in Richmond, we have both a historic area that's a federal historic area and a state. Generally, what they want is they do not want to be able to see solar panels from the street. So if you don't see it from the street, it's okay. So in the back portions of your building, in your backyard, it's fine to put it there. How big? How big of a system? Well, you don't want too big of a system because you don't want to overheat and you don't want to spend extra money. So it depends on how many people you have in your household or how big the house is designed. So if your house has, typically we now have about 3 people in a family. So that would probably work with a 50 or a 60 gallon tank and 1 panel on the roof. We have families in town that have extended families. We have 2 or 3 families that we put systems on, and there's 14 people in the house. So that, and their general description was, we don't have hot water. They can't. But electric just can only recover about 20 gallons an hour. So they are big fans of solar hot water. So you need to size the system for the family. It can do just domestic hot water, which is the most inexpensive. Or you can also do space heating, or you may only help do some of your space heating. Recently we did a habitat house and we heated just 1 room of the house. But at least they'll always have heat in that room. You can also do spas. Spas are one of the highest energy consumers in your household. If you have one, they're very expensive to operate. So you can preheat the water with solar panels. You can also do a pool. If you have a pool and you want the kids to be able to swim earlier or later, it works for that. Or if you really have one of those fancy pools, we have a fellow that just put on 8 solar panels to heat his pool. So he's ready to swim all the time. Cost. Well, it's more economical if you're building a house. So when you're thinking about building your next house, ask them to put the solar on then, because it's a lot cheaper. You don't have to worry about where things are in the walls, roof. It's very easy to do. When you're doing a domestic hot water system, we'd like to see it cheaper, but right now it averages around $5,000. That's for the system, and then it depends on your house. It might cost up to $2,000 to install it. Depends on how difficult it is and the distances. If you have a 3-story house, it's much more difficult just because the panels are on the roof and the tank's in the basement. So you've got a longer run. Some people have asked, well, space heating, what's that going to cost? Well, it costs a little bit more, but it's typical of any other heating system that you'll install. So it runs, depending upon the size of the house again, but they tend to average around $12,000. Financing and incentives. This is, first of all, we still have the federal tax credit, which is 30%. So if you are paying taxes, like some of us do, you can get up to 30% tax credit off your taxes. And there's also a property tax incentive. There's 20 counties in the Virginia area that offer tax incentives, so that if you install a solar hot water space heating system like I did, and it cost $12,000, my taxes didn't go up for it. It's excluded. So if you're in one of those 20 counties, you'll get a tax incentive. There are energy efficient mortgages if you're buying a new house. The VA, the FHA, and Fannie and Freddie Mac have special mortgages. So if you're buying a $200,000 house and you want to put a $10,000 energy system on it, you can. They'll give you that in your mortgage. And I generally encourage people to add it into their mortgage so that they only pay a few dollars a month for it over the life of the house. PACE, the federal government came out with a plan that would allow states to give permission to the counties, trickle down, right, to make money available to their residents to install solar systems. And they could pay it back with their tax bill. So that when you pay your taxes, you pay your $500 for your taxes and you pay your $125 or whatever it is for your solar hot water. Unfortunately, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac didn't like that, because if any problems come up with the mortgage where they have to go and repossess the house, that it gets real confusing over taxes and mortgage money. So currently that's on hold, but the federal legislation was just introduced to get that back on track, because that's been very popular in all of the states for a funding mechanism. Home equity loans are always available. They're available for solar. About half of our customers will use a home equity loan. Something new is power savers loans. Right now it's in an FHA pilot. There's one bank in Virginia out in Charlottesville that handles this, but it's still new. But again, so you're going to see more financing possibilities in the future to pay for renewables, not just solar, but any renewable. Maintenance. Somebody asked me once, how can I tell if my solar system is working? Well, you could feel the pipe and check out and see if it's warm, the pipe between the solar collector and the hot water tank. Generally, you don't have to. There's usually a thermostat or a thermometer that tells you what the temperature of the water is. Typically, it's 140 to 160 degrees coming down from the roof through the heat exchanger to heat your tank. About the only thing that we recommend people do is there's insulation. If your piping is exposed on the outside of your house, that piping, if it's in the path, if it's getting direct sunlight, it will cause the insulation to deteriorate over years. So it's a good idea when you paint your house to paint the pipe, or go once a year and put any latex paint over it. That helps keep it nice and soft and pliable, and it will last 20-some years. If you don't do anything to it, in about 3 or 4 years, you'll be replacing the insulation. System will still work, but the insulation will have deteriorated. That's one of the common things we have to do when we go out and service equipment that's 25 years old, is to replace the insulation. The glycol, we check it. We recommend someone check it every 3 to 5 years if you've got a glycol-based system. There are some systems that don't use glycol that just drain back so that they don't freeze. And if you have any questions, you can reach us through the Metropolitan Business League in Richmond, Virginia. And we appreciate your watching this webinar today.